I failed class piano twice.
You're listening to That Music Podcast with Bryson Tarbett, the curriculum designer and educational consultant behind That Music Teacher and the Elementary Music Summit. Each week, Bryson and his guests will dive into the reality of being an elementary music teacher and how music can truly be transformative in the lives of the students you serve. Show notes and resources mentioned in this episode can be found at thatmusicteacher.com.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to That Music Podcast. You heard me correctly. I failed class piano twice in undergrad. If you know anything about my experience in undergrad, you know that I struggled with piano. You know, a lot of times people ask you, if you could go back and change one thing about your life, what would it be? And it was to learn the piano before I went to undergrad. Raise your hand if you are not a pianist, but were forced to do the piano things in undergrad. My hand is raised all the way up. I want to talk a little bit about that because, first of all, I still do not prefer, I would not qualify myself as a pianist. I know enough to be dangerous. And I think that when we think about this and when we're asked about this, do you play the piano? We often go, ooh, if we're kind of on that fence. And that was exactly how I felt when I was essentially asked to do a sixth grade choir. We needed some flexibility in the schedule, and that was one way that we could make it a little better. And I straight up told my principal at the time, and I said, you know what? I am not a pianist. So as long as we are on the same working expectation of what will be coming out of, the piano when I'm in there, we'll be good. And I think that, first of all, you do not need to play the piano at all in order to be successful in a choral setting. Is it helpful? Yes. Does it, especially in a setting where you're not going to be able to have an accompanist or a rehearsal track? Yeah, it's going to be really helpful. But quite frankly, when I was doing my rehearsals in the choral setting, I was not using the piano a lot. And part of that is something that I took with me from undergrad when I was student teaching. My cooperating teacher basically said, Bryson, you are not great at the piano, which again was totally true. And she basically said, so stop using it so heavily. And you're a great singer. You have a good ear. Use that. So when I would get away from the piano, that was when I was able to be more successful because I wasn't so focused on me playing the right thing. So I could still hear what my students were singing. I could give them better feedback. I could model it better rather than trying to use it in the piano. And that is totally effective way of running a rehearsal. When I did my Kodály levels, we had Lila Gabor all the way from Hungary as our choir director, and she very rarely used the piano. A lot of tuning fork, a lot of here's your pitch, a lot of here's a pitch, now find yours. And it was a really cool experience for me because, again, I'm not a pianist. Now, Lila Gabor 100% could be a pianist. She had those chops. She just chose not to use them in that setting a lot. And I think that's one of those things where we need to understand our own strengths and weaknesses as educators and use that to frame the way in which we teach. So at this point, when I started my choir program, I had already gone through my Kodály levels. I've had this experience of a kind of a different way of rather than being behind a piano and plunking out parts. So when I was in front of my choir, I could do some basic chords. I could plunk out a couple different parts. And then one of the really cool things that came out of going through my Kodály levels is, part of our musicianship was, all right, you're going to sing one part and you're going to play another part. And basically it kind of forced me into taking, basic piano skills, right? Like playing a melody but using my voice as the strong part, right? I'm much stronger as a singer than as a pianist. So if I can play this part, but I can sing the harmony part. So instead of that right there, instead of me having to play two parts, I only have to play one part and then sing another part. And that was a skill that I used a lot when I was in that choral setting is, all right, part one, I'm going to sing your part. Part two, I'm going to play your part. And then maybe I'd flip it. And that allowed me to not have to be bogged down in the keys, but it still allowed me to use that piano as a tool. So that is a big trick. If you are vocally strong, use that to your advantage. Don't feel like you have to do all the things. On top of that, don't feel like you need to play what's on the page. For instance, a lot of the times, if once my students were able to kind of know their parts pretty much and they would keep it going, the next logical step would be to add the accompaniment, right? Except for the vast majority of the pieces, I was not going to be successful playing the accompaniment. So what I would do is I would simplify it. So depending on the song, I would maybe just play the left hand, or just play the right hand, or maybe just play the chords, right? Just another way to give them more without having to do the whole thing. And then kind of going off of that, when I was selecting music, I knew that I was not going to have an accompanist ever. And I knew that if we were ever to perform, it would be me and the choir. So when I was looking at pieces of music that I wanted to perform, I specifically looked for ones that had a piano accompaniment that either was simple enough that I felt like I could learn it if I practiced it, or was simple enough, or was something that I could simplify in a way that would still have a good final polished product, but wasn't super complicated. Because I also knew that I just didn't have a lot of time to dedicate to practicing the piece, because again, this was just one of the many classes that I taught at the time. So that's another strategy that you can use, is just being aware of the situation you're in. If I was a great pianist, I probably would have picked more complex pieces, or at least, more complex accompaniment. But I was just getting started. This was a first year program. This was me in front of the piano, and I knew that I needed to simplify. And I knew that I also really wanted to get my students singing a cappella, because one, it's easier for me. And two, my students have been doing a lot of that already, because when they came to me, this is a 6th grade choir. At this point, they'd been singing all the way since kindergarten. Especially the students that had me, the vast majority of their singing was a cappella in that kind of Kodai tradition, right? And I think that for me, one of the biggest things that I found helpful was not reinventing the wheel. And I've talked about this a lot on the podcast about, when I was going through this, the idea of creating this program is thinking of it as an extension of what we were already doing rather than something completely different. So we were able to do things like rounds. We were able to do a cappella singing because they'd already been doing it. And I was just thoughtful about the way that I planned and the pieces that I planned. And quite frankly, we were in a really unique situation where I wasn't expected to do anything. I was expected to have the students making music in a choral setting, and that was it. I got to kind of create my own parameters of what success looked like. And for me, it was just getting them singing in different parts, and getting them singing different styles of music. So if you are sitting there stressing out because you are not a great piano player, take a breath. Obviously, if you can improve those skills, it's going to be helpful. If you're an undergrad listening to this, just practice. It's going to be so much helpful for you. But, I've gone to interviews where they wanted me to play the piano, and I'm like, yeah, I don't think this is going to work. If you want someone who can be an accompanist for the high school, that's not going to be me. And I think it's also a thing we need to realize is that the expectations we're walking into, they just might not be made for us. And that's okay. It can be kind of frustrating when you're trying to find a job and you're just like, please, anyone. But the reality is you don't have to be a good pianist to be a good music educator. And I think that's something, how do I want to say this nicely? I think that's something that I wish was more widely spread at the undergraduate level. So I want to leave you with this. If you want to make choir music and you feel like you do not have the piano chops and that those piano chops are going to get in the way, don't let them. There are other ways that you can make music and get your students making music at a high quality that's allowing them to grow, that's allowing them to get new experiences without you having to be tied behind a piano. Thank you so much for listening to this week's episode. As always, if you've not left us a review on iTunes or wherever you're listening, it would mean the world to us if you were to leave us a review. Not only does that help us get the podcast in front of you new listeners, but it also helps us understand what types of episodes you resonate with most. With that being said, thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for listening or watching if you're hanging out on YouTube with us. And in case nobody has told you lately, thank you so much for making a difference in the lives of the students that you teach.